Chapter 31. Max Zeke's unique ability, Dragon Domination, obtained by absorbing Bahamut's heart, activated. Do you wish to subdue the target dragon? I don't know what it is, but let's try it. But soon a warning message popped up. Your authority is insufficient to subdue the target dragon. Failed to subdue the fallen dragon. It seemed that even with the authority, he couldn't subdue just any dragon. Just then, a thumping sound echoed from outside the door, as if the Hydra had abandoned its severed heads and left. Zeke looked at the Hydra heads stuck in the door and pondered what to do, then used the gluttony skill, Rumble. Zeke's shadow wavered and spread out towards the Hydra heads. The three severed Hydra heads slowly sank into the shadow as if being swallowed by a black swamp. It took quite a while to absorb all three Hydra heads. When the absorption was complete, a message popped up. You have devoured the severed heads of the fallen dragon corrupted by tainted energy. Your depleted stamina, mental strength, and mana are restored as a reward for devouring a designated extermination target. Your gluttony skill level increases. You have imperfectly absorbed the bloodline ability of the devoured creature, gaining the constitution of poison immunity. After devouring the Hydra heads, his depleted energy was replenished. Zeke confirmed that poison immunity had been added to his constitution category. In addition, his gluttony skill level increased from beginner to expert. Designated extermination target. Does that mean the reward is higher for eliminating dragon-type monsters like the Hydra? Zeke closed the status window and, after confirming that the door was completely closed, finally entered the ruins. The structure of the ruins was similar to the Dragon Slayer's resting place. While the Dragon Slayer's resting place was mostly made of gray material, Kaiser's ruins were made of a smooth, white material. According to legend, King Kaiser was a half-human, half-elf born between a wise sage and an elf king. However, due to the scheme of an evil wizard, Kaiser was separated from his parents and abandoned alone in the mountains. A sacred wolf found the young Kaiser crying in the mountains, nursed him with her milk, and raised him, allowing him to grow up safely. Kaiser used his unparalleled strength to save persecuted humans and established Kronos, a kingdom exclusively for humans in the central continent. Of course, since the Kronos kingdom was also a nation from legends, it was unknown whether it actually existed. However, the royal family of the Rom Empire had long claimed to be descendants of King Kaiser. The sacred wolf, the symbol of the Rom Empire, originated from this legend. Although the king and the Kronos kingdom remained as legendary figures, these ruins were evidence that the Kronos kingdom might have actually existed. Zeke marveled at the solid structure with its high ceiling. It was surprising that a structure built more than 2,000 years ago was still intact. He opened the minimap and went deeper into the ruins. A long corridor stretched between the giant pillars lined up on both sides. Zeke walked down the corridor cautiously. As he went further down the corridor, he came across a door. When Zeke reached out to the door, a message popped up, opening the resting place of King Kaiser. Simultaneously, the door opened. The space inside was unexpectedly small. It was a circular space made entirely of white material with an altar-like structure in the center. The map indicated the altar as the destination. Zeke cautiously crossed the space, climbed the stairs, and went up to the altar. When he reached the altar, he saw a pedestal in the center. A large, iridescent sky blue gem was floating on the pedestal. A gem? Not the king's secret swordsmanship manual? He had to find the swordsmanship manual to complete the mission. Zeke looked all over the pedestal, but the swordsmanship manual was nowhere to be found. Then, as Zeke's hand reached towards the gem, you have found a permanent record left by King Kaiser. Transferring and saving the permanent record to the system. Seeing the system message, Zeke looked at the gem on the pedestal. The message left by King Kaiser will automatically play. At that moment, a video appeared before Zeke's eyes. The face of a delicate young man with snow-white hair and eyebrows appeared on the screen. The young man's eyes shone beautifully with a clear sky-blue color. His appearance was reminiscent of a legendary elf. The young man in the video began to speak. However, Zeke couldn't understand a word he was saying. As he frowned in frustration, a message popped up, ancient Kronos language detected, automatically converting to the common language of the central continent. Simultaneously, the young man's words began to be translated into the common language. So, I climbed the mountain and said, "Hey, are you the giant king?" And he immediately tried to mess with me, right? In the past, I would have just grabbed him by the neck and smashed his head. But at that time, I had a family to take care of and I had a reputation to uphold, so I asked him politely, "Why do you keep crossing into our territory?" Then he rolled his eyes and started acting crazy, so hey, hold it steady. The screen is shaking. Saturn, damn it. Are you going to keep messing around? Where was I? Oh man, you made me forget. Zeke blinked. He was confused about what he had just heard. Judging from this situation, the foul-mouthed man in the video seemed to be the King Kaiser, but something felt off. The records and Kaiser's face are too different. Besides, if that's Saturn, he's the most loyal knight of the clock tower and a symbol of nobility. For the next 30 minutes, Kaiser continued his tirade, a mix of colorful curses, self-praise, and harsh criticism of Saturn. You have finished watching one of 546 episodes of the King Kaiser Chronicles. Do you wish to continue watching? Zeke, finally seeing the message that appeared after the video ended, was shocked to learn that there were over 500 such videos. Moreover, he was so bewildered by how different Kaiser was from what he had imagined that he couldn't think straight. In any case, the important thing was Kaiser's secret swordsmanship. Zeke held his aching head and said to the system, "Find me information about Kaiser's secret swordsmanship here." Zeke was now getting the hang of using the system. Then a message appeared, searching for videos about secret swordsmanship in 546 Chronicle videos. 12 videos found. Zeke was surprised to see the search results. There are over 500 videos, but only 12 are about secret swordsmanship? His already aching head started to hurt even more. He had to watch the 12 videos that were found, so he started playing them. Soon, Kaiser appeared on the screen again. Unlike before, he was holding a sword. He looked at the screen and raised his sword. What is a sword? A sword is a sword. What else would it be? It's because those old geezers who don't even know how to swing a sword spout nonsense that the kids get confused. A sword is just something you can stab and slash well with. There's no need to overthink it. That's what I'm saying. Hey, that was good, Saturn. Write this down in the annals later. What? The annals aren't an autobiography? Just do it when I tell you to. Why are you so talkative? Just shut up and do as you're told, damn it. Kaiser continued to curse at Saturn for a while, then, perhaps having vented enough, he suddenly grabbed his sword and stood up again. So, that's what a sword is. Then how do you use a sword well? Just swing it hard and often. That's all there is to it. Just swing it like this. Kaiser suddenly took a stance with his sword. Wong. Something like heat haze emanated from his body. The heat haze enveloped Kaiser's body and his sword. In that state, he swung his sword. Whoosh. Zeke felt as if his neck had been cut by Kaiser's sword in the video. Gasp. Zeke unconsciously used Phantom Step and jumped back. That's how much momentum was contained in Kaiser's sword. Zeke paused the video. What was that? That just now, it didn't seem like he used aura. Zeke rewound the video and watched Kaiser's sword strike again. It was a chilling movement, even on second viewing. Just then, a system message appeared. Sudden chain mission learn the secret swordsmanship left by King Kaiser. No time limit. Sudden mission reward. Tears of the Elf King caution. You cannot leave Kaiser's resting place until you learn the secret swordsmanship. What the? Zeke looked bewildered at the sudden chain mission that had appeared. It came with the condition that he couldn't leave this place until he learned Kaiser's secret swordsmanship. This is crazy. How am I supposed to learn Kaiser's secret swordsmanship just by watching this video? Although there was no one to hear him, Zeke shouted in frustration. He turned off the video and tried to open the door by controlling the system. A mission is currently underway. You cannot open the door until you clear the mission. This is driving me insane. It was a frustrating situation. But he couldn't stay discouraged forever. Zeke came down from the pedestal and decided to explore the space first. There were 3 doors on the circular wall, and they opened automatically as Zeke approached. The first one seemed to be a food storage. Various foods were stored in thousands of preservation boxes. The second room was a space for sleeping and washing. The last room contained various weapons, armor, and books from the Chronos era. Kaiser's name was written on each item as if he had used and read them all. The books were written in ancient Chronos language, but fortunately, they were automatically translated thanks to the system correction, making them readable. It was as if everything had been prepared in advance for him to train in seclusion here. It seemed he was stuck here. Forced to train, Zeke let out a deep sigh and played the video again, sword in hand. Zeke followed Kaiser's movements one by one, appropriately skipping the useless curses in the video. This was possible thanks to Zeke's divine body. After watching all 12 videos and familiarizing himself with the forms of the swordsmanship, Zeke tried to perform the movements from beginning to end as he had learned them. But no matter how much he swung his sword, he couldn't replicate the feeling of Kaiser in the video. Just then, a message appeared again. You have learned the basic form of the elemental sword left by King Kaiser. The basic stage is complete. Moving on to the practical stage. Summoning the Hero King's spirit rumble. Suddenly, the altar in the center of the space began to descend. When the altar had completely descended, only the pedestal with the sky blue gem floating on it remained in the center of the space soon. Light flickered from the sky blue gem, and something appeared in front of it. What's this? A human figure gradually formed within the light. Surprisingly, it was Heir from the video. Appearing right there, Zeke, utterly astonished, gaped at Heir before him. Is that really Heir? Heir frowned, then immediately drew his sword from its scabbard and swung it towards Zeke. Whoosh! Zeke hurriedly raised Bahamut and blocked Heir's sword. Clang. The force contained in Heir's sword was so strong that Zeke was sent flying and crashed into the wall. Crash. Heir, casually resting his sword on his shoulder, said to the fallen Zeke, "Get up this instant." A stern rebuke pierced Zeke. "With those skills, you dare try to learn my swordsmanship? The knights of old would be rolling in their graves." Chapter 32. Is that really Heir? Zeke's hand, still gripping Bahamut, was tingling. As Zeke remained dazed and didn't get up, Heir charged at him again with his sword. Crash. He swung his sword towards Zeke without hesitation. Ugh! Zeke desperately dodged Heir's sword with phantom step. Heir showed no mercy. He simply pressed on relentlessly. "I don't know if you're real, a ghost, or what, but let's do this." Wuong. An aura blade surged from Zeke's sword. Heir looked at Zeke's sword and tilted his head. "Are you a disciple of Saturn?" Zeke didn't answer and dashed forward. Crash! Zeke's aura blade clashed with Heir's sword. Heir, looking curiously at Zeke's aura blade, swung his sword naturally. "That's quite fascinating. It's not elemental power, nor magical power, yet it maintains its form without scattering." Heir was very relaxed, but Zeke, facing him, felt like he was dying every time he clashed with Heir's sword. His whole body tingled. It seemed like Heir was swinging his sword lightly, yet a heavy force was contained within it. Interesting, let's play a bit more. Suddenly, Heir's movements became faster. Whoosh! Heir's sword moved so fast it was almost invisible. Zeke used phantom step, trying to keep up with Heir's movements. Ugh! The muscles in his body screamed from the strain of the excessive movements. And in the midst of all this, Heir's sword flew at him from his blind spot. Crash! Zeke managed to block the sword with Bahamut, but his entire body was pushed back. Defense was impossible. He's not even using aura, so how? Just then, someone came to Zeke's mind. The one and only being who wielded power beyond aura without using it. Master. Not Duke Drake, but the master who taught him how to open his ether hall and use soul perception. Zeke saw the image of his past master in Heir. Phew! Zeke deactivated the aura blade instead. He focused his mana on Bahamut and used soul perception, imbuing it with his will. Wuong. Instead of an aura blade, Zeke's will, contained in mana, dwelled in his sword. Seeing this, Heir was surprised once again. You can use elemental power? Saturn's techniques and elemental power on top of that, you're an interesting one. Heir raised his sword again. Rumble. A completely different energy could be felt. It was the same momentum he had seen in the video. It was as if a giant, the mountain itself, was pressing down on him. Tisk! Zeke was the first to charge at Heir. Soul perception, the will of severance. Zeke's sword, imbued with the will to cut, flew towards Heir at the same time. A huge storm surged from Heir's sword. Elemental sword, chapter of wind power. Storm sword. Literally, the power of a storm engulfed Zeke. Zeke lost consciousness, swept away by that tremendous power. Ugh! Zeke finally regained consciousness. He opened his eyes to see the pure white space. He remembered being struck by Heir's sword and losing consciousness. Zeke sat up and looked around, finding Heir in a strange posture with his eyes closed. He was floating in the air with his legs crossed. Perhaps sensing that Zeke had regained consciousness, Heir opened his eyes. "You've finally awakened, you weakling." Heir threw harsh words at him. Zeke asked Heir, "Are you truly the king, Heir?" Heir lifted his chin with an arrogant expression and replied, "What does it matter if I'm real or not?" Such an attitude. Zeke once again realized how fabricated the legend of the king was. Just then, Heir stretched out his hand. Bahamut, which was lying next to Zeke, was sucked into his hand. "What are you doing?" As Zeke lunged to retrieve Bahamut, Kaiser snapped his fingers. Instantly, Zeke's body felt heavy, and he couldn't move. Ugh! Kaiser examined Bahamut, floating it in the air. "It's faint, but I can sense Bahamut's energy. How is this possible?" Zeke gritted his teeth and glared at Kaiser. "What does it matter?" Zeke threw back the same words he had heard earlier. Kaiser smirked and snapped his fingers again. The oppressive force that had bound Zeke disappeared, but Zeke still glared at Kaiser with venomous eyes. Seizing the opportunity, he used the draconian skill Dragon Claws towards Kaiser. An invisible force was summoned from thin air, tearing apart the space where Kaiser stood. "Huh!" Kaiser reacted with a dumbfounded expression and raised his hand, creating a translucent barrier. The Dragon Claws couldn't penetrate the barrier and vanished. Even the Dragon Claws, which could easily tear through steel plates, were useless against Kaiser. Kaiser approached Zeke and said, "You're a fascinating one. You possess Saturn skills, use elemental power, and wield the power of dragons even though you're not one." He stretched out his hand, and Zeke floated into the air. A powerful force bound his entire body. Ugh! Kaiser placed his palm on Zeke's chest, and strange letters appeared on his clothes. It was the pattern engraved when he absorbed Bahamut's heart. Kaiser, confirming the letters that appeared, looked at Zeke with interest. "You're a human who has crossed the boundary of death countless times, and a part of your soul is connected to the spirit world. That's why you can use elemental power. I never thought it would be possible for a human to use a dragon's heart like this." He lowered his hand, and Zeke fell to the floor. Kaiser, with an amused expression, looked at Zeke and handed him Bahamut. "All right, I'm in a good mood because I saw something interesting after a long time. I'll teach you the elemental sword." Kaiser did whatever he wanted without any rhyme or reason. "Take your sword and stand up." As Zeke staggered to his feet, Kaiser said to him, "Unleash your elemental power." "You keep saying elemental power. What is that? You don't even know what it is, even though you're using it? Are you perhaps talking about mana?" "Mana? What's that?" It seemed they were using different terms because they were from different eras. Zeke concentrated mana in his body. Kaiser nodded. "Ah, I see, that's called mana. I didn't have a particular name for it." "All right, convert that mana into elemental power." Zeke understood Kaiser's cryptic words and concentrated his mana into his sword using soul perception. Then Kaiser suddenly approached and hit Zeke's head with his scabbard. Whack. What was that for?" "I told you to use elemental power, and you're using some pseudo-technique that imitates dragon speech. That's how I learned it in the first place." TSK, stop it. Humans can't use dragon speech in the first place. The vessel of the soul itself is different. Even I, who inherited the blood of the Elf King, am half-human and cannot use dragon speech. Hearing Kaiser's words, Zeke recalled the side effects he suffered every time he used soul perception in his previous life. At the same time, he thought of the draconian skill, dragon speech, that appeared after absorbing Bahamut's heart. If I can use that skill, I might be able to use true soul perception. Just then, Kaiser said to Zeke, "Elemental power refers to the pure power that makes up all things. The most efficient ones are fire, water, earth, and wind. You draw out that power based on the 4 basic elements. Watch carefully." Wong. Mana gathered in Kaiser's sword, and then that power transformed into a storm. It was the same power that had knocked Zeke unconscious earlier. He realized the nature of the power gathered in Kaiser's sword, the power of wind. The wind power vanished in an instant, and a new energy surged forth, the power of blazing fire, the gentle power of water, and even the heavy power of earth. The powers of the 4 elements were imbued in the sword. But isn't this more magic than swordsmanship? That was his first thought upon seeing Kaiser's power. Wizards generate magical power through a circle created in their hearts, unlike dragons who can naturally generate magical power from their hearts. Humans cannot create magical power without creating a circle. The more circles created in the heart, the stronger the magical power that can be used, and thus, the higher the recognition as a wizard. When the magical power generated from the circles is combined with magic circuits and formulas, magic is completed. To Zeke, Kaiser's elemental sword seemed closer to magic than swordsmanship. Now, you've seen it. Try it. If you can't, there's no teaching or anything. How am I supposed to try it with just that explanation? What do you mean? I've shown you enough. What more do you want? You haven't explained the core part of how to convert mana into elemental power by concentrating it. Kaiser looked annoyed as he listened to Zeke's detailed questions. "Ha, you brat, you sound just like that Saturn guy. It's annoying." He held his sword and created wind, then fire, then water, repeatedly. Then, at some point, he had a troubled expression. It just happens, how do I explain it? Zeke looked at Kaiser with a dubious expression and opened his mouth. I'm curious, has there been even a single person who has learned this technique? Kaiser replied with a confident expression, of course not. No one can just learn the elemental sword created by this great genius. The first Grandmaster. What about the noble knight Saturn? According to legend, you handed over the kingdom and everything to him. According to legend, after Kaiser established the Kronos kingdom, he handed over the throne to the noble knight Saturn and returned to the land of the elves. Saturn? I gave him the throne. Humans can't learn the elemental sword even if I teach them. Maybe elves could. Elves? Do elves use swords? So you're saying elves don't use swords? The books mostly say they use bows. I've never seen an elf myself, so I don't know. Why haven't you seen an elf? They're all over the place if you go outside. What era are you talking about? It's been hundreds of years since elves disappeared from the world. What? What kind of nonsense is that? What year is it now? It's the year 1038 of the Liberation Era. What's the Liberation Era? Speak in Kronos calendar. Kronos is a legendary kingdom to us. No one counts the years based on that. This is crazy. Just then, as if he remembered something, Zeke asked the system, what year is it in the Kronos calendar? A message appeared. It is the year 2120 of the Kronos calendar. Zeke said to Kaiser, it seems to be around the year 2120 of the Kronos calendar. What? So it's been 2,000 years since I left the kingdom? Kaiser had a shocked expression. Crazy. Even if I was in a spirit state, does it make sense that there was no one to inherit my legacy for 2,000 years? You said humans can't learn the elemental sword earlier, then how can there be a successor? That Saturn guy should have found someone. Seriously, that's completely absurd. Ignoring Zeke's words, Kaiser gritted his teeth and jumped around. That damn Saturn. He must have been so busy creating his own swordsmanship that he didn't care about my successor at all. Damn it, what was it? Oh yeah, I shouldn't have helped him when he was researching aura or whatever. Zeke was surprised to hear those words. Did you just say aura? Kaiser nodded. Yeah, that humans like Saturn couldn't learn my elemental sword, so he worked hard to create an alternative technique. Thanks to that, he was able to become a sword master, but it's just a cheap trick. Zeke held his sword and created an aura blade. Kaiser nodded. Yeah, but what you created is a bit different from what Saturn made. He said he draws energy from the ether hall or something. That's how it's supposed to be. My case is special. Kaiser gritted his teeth as he looked at the aura blade Zeke created. That damn Saturn. Passing down only his own technique to future generations. Not caring about mine at all. And after hearing Kaiser's next words, Zeke was more shocked than he had been since meeting him. That Saturn Draker bastard. I won't let him off if I catch him. Chapter 33. Saturn Draco? It was shocking enough that Saturn was the one who first created the aura cultivation technique, but he had never imagined that the noble knight Saturn was actually a descendant of Draker. Why wasn't this fact known to later generations? Until now, the origin of the aura cultivation technique itself was unclear. It was simply thought that each clan inherited and developed the cultivation techniques passed down through their lineage. This was the moment the secret of the origin of the aura cultivation technique was revealed. Zeke, recovering from the shock, calmed down the agitated Kaiser, and by gently coaxing him, he began to extract information about the elemental sword. Kaiser was foul-mouthed, but he tried his best to share what he knew. You're a bit better than the others, you understand what I'm saying. For the next few weeks, Zeke was able to learn the theory of the elemental sword from Kaiser. Surprisingly, the elemental sword was a much more systematic swordsmanship than he had expected, and many of Kaiser's legendary feats had been downplayed. You say you defeated the Gorgon alone, Your Majesty? The legend says that all 12 Knights of the Clock Tower joined forces to defeat it. Knights of the Clock Tower? I don't know what that is, but anyway, I went there and wiped them out in one go. The others probably just cleaned up afterward. Listening to Kaiser's detailed account of the unrecorded history of the past, Zeke couldn't help but believe that the person in front of him was indeed Kaiser himself, in spirit form. Once he left his physical body and went to the spirit world where the elves resided, it was impossible to return to the physical world, however. He had placed restrictions on himself to remain in this place as a spirit and prepared the ruins. How is that possible? Kaiser said in a casual tone. It was possible because the dragons helped me. What? Dragons? Seeing Zeke's surprise, Kaiser was even more surprised. Why are you surprised that dragons helped me? Well, dragons are enemies of humans. What are you talking about? Why would dragons be enemies of humans? There's no being that cherishes humans more than dragons. Kaiser pointed at Zeke's sword and said, "Didn't Bahamut give you that sword and heart?" Zeke's eyes wavered intensely. "Well, yes. If he misspoke here and provoked Kaiser, all his efforts to appease him could go to waste." Zeke cautiously asked Kaiser, "Your Majesty, have you ever heard of dragon slayers?" Kaiser gritted his teeth at those words. "Are you talking about those damn dragon slayers who act all high and mighty? I remember when they sneaked into a lair, captured a precious hatchling, and bragged about hunting dragons. I went and chopped off all their heads." Zeke remained silent. If he said that his ancestor had cut off Bahamut's head and displayed his fang and heart, Kaiser might do the same to him as he did to those dragon slayers. Kaiser, quickly calming his anger at Zeke's silence, suddenly looked at Zeke with curiosity and asked, "By the way, how did you get the fang and heart from that ill-tempered Bahamut? He's the most disagreeable dragon I've ever met." Zeke lied without batting an eye. "My Murray clan has been friends with Lord Bahamut for generations. As you can see, my constitution is unique. He found me interesting and shared his fang and heart with me." Kaiser nodded at his words. Well, he was indeed interested in things that seemed interesting. That's why Kronos scolded him a lot. Kronos. Judging from the context, it seemed to be the name of a dragon. It was a name that didn't appear in the Dragon Slayer records. Zeke cautiously asked Kaiser, "Was the Kronos kingdom named after Lord Kronos?" "Well, yes, since I was Kronos' contractor, I received a lot of help when establishing the kingdom. I was thinking about what to name the kingdom, and since Kronos was hovering around, I just decided to name it Kronos because it was convenient. It was absurd to learn that the name of the legendary kingdom was chosen for such a trivial reason. But a contractor of Kronos. Can dragons make contracts with humans?" He wanted to ask many questions, but Zeke was worried that if he asked too deeply, he might reveal that he was a descendant of the Dragon Slayer clan. So he cautiously asked questions as if he were simply curious. After a long conversation, based on Kaiser's words, it seemed that in his time, humans and dragons had a very good relationship, and dragons helped humans a lot as they were less civilized. The dragons at that time played the role of world adjusters, so they couldn't provide unconditional help to the physical world. He said that only after making a contract with a human, polymorphing into a human form, and placing restrictions on themselves could they help their contractor. Otherwise, the balance of the world could be disrupted, endangering the physical world. This is so different from what I know. There were many records of the history after the evil dragon Bahamut was slain by Terrican Draker and the continent was saved from crisis, but the history before that was mostly lost because so little was known. Some scholars even argued that ancient civilizations were far more advanced than the present, and listening to Kaiser, Zeke felt once again how little information there was about ancient times. At that time, there were dragon contractors everywhere, and the polymorph dragons seemed to have helped humans greatly, to the extent of influencing human history. Among the ancient items discovered in ancient ruins, there were some that couldn't be understood with current magical knowledge. And Zeke wondered if they were perhaps created with the help of dragons. Zeke was curious about why the relationship between humans and dragons, which had been so close, became so distant. I should watch the chronicle videos left by Kaiser later. After organizing his thoughts, Zeke decided to focus on completely mastering the elemental sword first. He had told everyone he was in Argos for a vacation to avoid the eyes of his clan, so there wouldn't be any major problems. But he had to return to Atlas before the Valhalla semester started. Mastering the elemental sword went more smoothly than expected. However, Zeke unexpectedly struggled at a certain stage. Hey, that's not it. You're doing everything else well. So why do you keep getting this wrong? He couldn't quite grasp the chapter of water power, which dealt with the power of water among the four elements. Zeke once again drew upon the power of water and swung his sword. A powerful force, like a waterfall crashing down, swept through the surroundings. Kaiser whacked Zeke's head with his scabbard. "You idiot. Is this the power of water or the power of a waterfall? The essence of water power is gentleness. Don't you know the saying that gentleness overcomes hardness? I've never heard that before. This brat. It seems like he just says he doesn't know anything that's disadvantageous to him. Anyway, the power of water isn't just about using force. Look here." Kaiser raised his sword and drew upon the power of water. His sword flowed calmly like a still water surface. It flowed leisurely like a flowing river, sometimes slowly like a calm lake, and sometimes struck powerfully like a waterfall. Kaiser sheathed his sword and said, "All four elements are important, but water is the most important of them all. Life began from water, and over 70% of our body is made up of water. Do you understand, you idiot? In his previous life, Zeke had pursued extreme strength with the determination to survive, driven by the need to become stronger. It was only natural that he wasn't accustomed to swordsmanship that emphasized yielding and gentleness. His head and body understood the movements, but his heart couldn't fully grasp the concept. Kaiser decided to start again from the basics. Because of this, Zeke had to sit in a cross-legged position, like Kaiser, and meditate for hours every day. He was frustrated, because he had to sit still for hours when he needed to quickly master the elemental sword and go to Valhalla. Whack. Whenever he had distracting thoughts, Kaiser's scabbard would hit his head. Clear your mind and look deep within yourself. Kaiser spoke like a priest, which didn't suit him at all. Just like that, a month passed. Despite this, Zeke still couldn't understand the power of water. On the contrary, his impatience only increased his distracting thoughts, and he ended up getting hit on the back of his head even more by Kaiser. In the end, Kaiser decided to take a different approach. I can't believe the only one who can inherit my legacy is such an idiot. Perhaps there's a problem with your Majesty's teaching method? Shut up, this won't do. You'll have to learn in a different way. Was there a different way? Why didn't you teach me that from the beginning? We've wasted so much time. You'll regret those words. Kaiser's method was simple. The key to the power of water was relaxation. In other words, it was important to release power, and Kaiser's method was to forcibly exhaust the body and instill relaxation. Zeke smirked as he listened to Kaiser. He had the passive skill infinite stamina, so he couldn't feel the sensation of fatigue, but that was Zeke's misconception. Gasp. Gasp. Intense training that even infinite stamina couldn't keep up with began. It was endless sparring with Kaiser without eating or sleeping. He had to fight and fight against Kaiser without rest. On top of that, Kaiser used the chapter of metal power to increase the gravity on Zeke's body tenfold. With his heavy body, he had to somehow dodge or block Kaiser's attacks, move faster. Crash. The storm sword, using the chapter of wind power, swept towards Zeke. Zeke also used the chapter of wind power to block the storm sword. However, Zeke's elemental power was no match for Kaiser's power. He was swept away and crashed into the wall. Perhaps because he had grown stronger than before, he thankfully didn't lose consciousness, and Kaiser didn't let Zeke rest. He made him get up and pummeled him with new techniques. After realizing that Zeke had healing factor and infinite stamina which healed most wounds instantly, he was having even more fun beating him up. This is fun. This kind of stimulation is hard to come by in the boring spirit world. Zeke was tormented by Kaiser for a whole month, forcibly instilled with relaxation. At the moment when he felt like he couldn't move a finger, Zeke swung his sword and practiced his footwork with his body completely relaxed. Swinging his sword in a state of utter exhaustion, he couldn't tell if he was the sword or the sword was him. It was a sensation he had never experienced in his previous life. Zeke swung his sword, lost in a trance, when he completely relaxed his body. The sword softly and smoothly found its own path. He understood the forms that made up the chapter of water power, which he couldn't grasp no matter how hard he tried. At that moment, enlightenment came to Zeke. Wong. Zeke, having grasped the principle of relaxation, swung his sword in a different way than usual. He used the elemental sword, then the gale force, and even used the dragon slayer technique by raising his aura unconsciously. His hands moved and moved as they pleased. The energy that had been swirling around Zeke's body was then contained within him. He had broken through the wall of the Red Knight, surpassing the Blue Knight. Zeke opened his eyes. Sudden chain mission successful. Tears of the Elf King awarded as a reward. 500 karma points awarded as a reward. Main quest mission successful. System administrator privileges upgraded to intermediate administrator as a reward. Intermediate administrator system privileges activated. System functions have been unlocked as you have been promoted to intermediate administrator. Beginner questbook changed to intermediate questbook. System linkage function activated. Skill shortcut slots unlocked. Only active skills can be used. Item shortcut slots unlocked. Automatic equipment and potion consumption enabled. Portal movement system on the mini app activated. 500 karma points awarded as a reward. 3 random skill cards and 3 random boxes awarded as a reward. Messages continued to appear. You have learned King Kaiser's elemental sword. Elemental sword S grade added to special skills. Your soul has grown. The power of your inherent authority has grown stronger. The seal on Bahamut's heart has been partially released due to the growth of your soul. Current compression seal level is 90. This is amazing. Chapter 34. It seemed like many functions had been added with the promotion to Intermediate Administrator. Zeke opened his status window after a long time. Intermediate Administrator status window name, Zeke Draker class, immortal unique title. Blessed by the ancient dragon, heir of Terracan Draco authority, dragon control constitution, divine body, poison immunity system functions. Inventory 100 slots minimap portal movement intermediate questbook skill shortcut slots potion shortcut slots passive. Skills, healing factor steadfast mental defense infinite stamina combat sense special skill gale force A rank expert elemental sword S rank beginner active skills. Precise stab E rank expert continuous / D rank beginner critical strike D rank proficient high speed movement C rank beginner mana reflection A rank beginner area of effect buff beginner draconian skills level 2 unlocked. Dragon Eyes expert Dragon's Majesty expert gluttony expert dragon speech locked dragon scale. Armor expert Dragon Claws expert current karma points 1365. The blocked wall had been broken through and he had also completed the quest mission by acquiring the elemental sword. Zeke could feel that he had broken through the wall and reached the level of a red knight. Seeing Zeke, Kaiser crossed his arms and nodded. Yes, you need to be at least this strong to be called my successor. Although you're still lacking. Zeke asked Kaiser, doesn't the elemental sword have any application techniques? If there are any special moves or ultimate moves, I'd like to learn those too. You idiot, if you wield it properly, you can create storms and split the earth, so why would you need an ultimate move? Only those who lack skills seek special moves or ultimate moves. As expected, Kaiser was full of himself. Still, with Kaiser's skills, Zeke could understand why he would say that. What will happen to your majesty now? Now that I've passed on the elemental sword, I must return to the spirit world. Can you not return to the physical world from the spirit world? If a powerful spirit like me descends recklessly, the laws of the world will crumble, karma won't allow it. Zeke was surprised by Kaiser's words. Did you say karma? What does that mean? Suddenly, Kaiser's body began to turn transparent. I'll be going now, don't be an idiot and get beaten up somewhere, and make sure to tell the people of the world about my great achievements. Kaiser was the same when he left as when he arrived, only saying what he wanted to say. Soon, Kaiser completely disappeared and the sky blue gem on the pedestal lost its light at the same time. What a personality. I wonder if he can even get along with the elves. After Kaiser left, Zeke entered the room and put everything he could carry into his inventory, and after a few months, he was able to open the door to the ruins and come out. He wanted to test his new power and fight the Hydra, but it was nowhere to be seen. Zeke left the ruins and turned on the mini-app to descend the mountain. Just then, a new function on the map was activated. A new function has been activated, enabling portal movement, locations that can be accessed via portal among the places the administrator has visited will be marked on the map. Portal movement is possible? Zeke checked the map. Among the areas he had visited, the ones where portal movement was possible were marked with a blinking light. He checked the portal accessible areas from Argo's point deduction for portal use. 150. As he clicked on various locations, it seemed like the deducted points varied depending on the distance, since the hounds were roaming the giant mountains and he was already late for the start of the Valhalla semester. Zeke decided to use the portal by consuming points, moving to the designated area, activating portal. His vision blurred for a moment and he felt dizzy. The unique nausea of using a portal washed over him. When Zeke looked up, he was already near the old ruins of Argos. Oh my god. Although it consumed points, it seemed like he could freely move anywhere on the continent using this function. Zeke returned to the resort where he was staying and prepared to leave for Atlas. It had already been a month since the Valhalla entrance ceremony. He hurried to Atlas, the largest city in the central continent and the heart of Midland. In my 10 years at Valhalla, I've never seen anything like this. An elderly knight in a suit looked at Zeke with a stern expression. He was Flaubert Borges, the headmaster of Valhalla, a place every knight dreamed of entering. Flaubert was elected as the headmaster of Valhalla despite not being from the Draker clan. He was a knight respected throughout the continent, to the point that there was no opposition when he became the headmaster. As the longest-serving captain of the royal guard in the kingdom of Thebes with a long tradition, he was a person of outstanding skill and reputation. Because of this, the anecdote about Arthur Draker visiting him 3 times to ask him to become the headmaster of Valhalla was still being told today. Thanks to this, Valhalla's reputation soared even higher after Flaubert became the headmaster. Flaubert, famous as an outstanding knight and a principled man, looked alternately at the letter of recommendation in front of him and Zeke standing before him. So why are you late? You surely didn't forget that the semester starts in March, did you? Since he couldn't say that he was caught by King Kaiser in the ruins and had to train, Zeke slightly altered the truth. I went to Argos for closed training and became so engrossed in my training that I lost track of time. Flaubert looked at Zeke with sharp eyes. Are you implying that your closed training was more valuable than a month at Valhalla? That's not what I meant. I was simply so focused on finding the path of the sword I sought that I lost track of time. Flaubert was a principled man, but he wasn't inflexible. He was also an outstanding knight, so he could understand Zeke's explanation to some extent. Flaubert nodded and said, "There's some truth to your words, but Valhalla has its own principles." He looked at Zeke and said, "I'll judge based on the results of the training you did in Argos. If I deem that training more valuable than a month at Valhalla, I'll permit your enrollment." "You mean you want me to show you the results of my training?" "Indeed. Why, do you lack confidence?" Zeke shook his head. "No, sir. Shall we start right now?" Flaubert shook his head and rang a bell. Someone entered the room. "Find an empty training room and take Zeke Draker there, and contact the professors of each department and tell them to gather at the training room immediately." Zeke followed the headmaster's secretary to the training room. He had never been inside Valhalla even in his previous life, so the unfamiliar buildings seemed fascinating to him. "This way, sir." For an empty training room, its size and facilities were impressive as expected of Valhalla. As he was looking around the training room, Headmaster Flaubert arrived with other professors. Each professor was a renowned knight on the continent. Zeke stood in the center of the training ground, and the headmaster, sitting in the spectator seats, said to Zeke with a gleam in his eyes, "Show us the results of your training. The professors of each department will evaluate it and make the final decision." Zeke, standing alone in the training ground, pondered the headmaster's words. He couldn't gauge what he should show to satisfy the strict headmaster. "I can't show the elemental sword here either. This is troubling." Zeke decided to simply demonstrate the Gale Force and the Dragon Slayer technique. He took out Bahamut and assumed a stance. The headmaster and the professors of each department watched Zeke with sharp eyes. Their gazes seemed to say, "Let's see what you can do." Zeke focused his energy on Bahamut and an aura blade surged forth just as he was about to demonstrate the Gale Force technique. "Oh my God!" someone exclaimed before he could even do anything. Zeke turned his head to see what was happening, and he saw the professors all staring at his aura blade with astonished expressions. Oops. When he was with King Kaiser, the aura blade was considered a trivial technique and he was treated as a slow learner, but back in reality, he had become an unparalleled genius who created an aura blade at the age of 15. Zeke closed his eyes tightly and lamented his mistake. There was nothing he could do about the water that had already been spilled. He withdrew the aura blade and bowed politely. "My skills are too embarrassing to show to the headmaster and the esteemed professors." The professors were once again impressed by the politeness of the pureblood awakener of Draker, who had become a blue knight at the age of 15. The headmaster said in a much softer voice, "It seems that month was for gaining valuable enlightenment. I was foolish and struggled to grasp the elusive clues, so I lost track of time. I apologize once again." The headmaster also seemed to have completely calmed down as he said with a smile, "Haha, if you're foolish, then what are we?" The other professors also laughed heartily at the headmaster's words. The evaluation ended smoothly in a friendly atmosphere, and Zeke was granted permission to enroll in Valhalla after the matter was settled. He moved to the lodging in Atlas that Decker had secured in advance. With the black card he received from the head of the clan, he was able to acquire a luxurious mansion not far from Valhalla. "Welcome." As Zeke entered the mansion, the servants greeted him. Decker, the servant who was more knight-like than a knight, also bowed his head to Zeke. "How is Valhalla, young master?" "It was fine. They told me to come next week. They'll send the necessary documents for enrollment here, so please take care of it." "Understood, young master." Zeke went straight up to his room. As soon as he arrived, he remembered the random boxes and random skill cards he hadn't opened yet because of his urgent trip to Valhalla. 3 random boxes and 3 random skill cards. He had experience opening random boxes before, but this was his first time with random skill cards. Zeke decided to open the random boxes first. Boots, lower body armor, and an earring came out, one of each. Boots information description. Boots made using hard yet light meteoric iron. Inherent abilities, none. Special note, inherent abilities activate when the full meteoric iron set is equipped. Lower body armor information description. Lower body armor made of hard yet light meteoric iron. Inherent abilities, none. Special note, inherent abilities activate when the full meteoric iron set is equipped. Earring information description. Earrings delicately crafted from crystal. Inherent ability. Increases mana recovery speed by 15. Special note, Goes well with a red dress. They were rather ordinary items. Following the gauntlets, he now had boots and lower body armor made of meteoric iron. He thought that maybe someday he would complete the full set. He decided to open the random skill cards next. It was his first time, so he felt a bit cautious. The cards emitted light and soon a message appeared. Opening random skill cards. Active skill, static electricity C rank, registered. Active skill, flash bang C rank, registered. Active skill, discord C rank, registered. A total of 3 active skills were registered. Zeke read the skill descriptions. Static electricity, imbues a weapon with electric shock. Flashbang, fires an intensely bright light to block the enemy's vision. Discord, makes an unpleasant sound to confuse enemies. Zeke then checked the newly unlocked skill shortcut slot function. 3 empty slots appeared before his eyes. When he pressed a slot, he could select and place one of his active skills in it. Zeke placed Flashbang, Discord, and Static Electricity in the slots in order. Skills placed in the slots can be used just by thinking. After confirming the message, he held a dagger and thought about using Static Electricity, and immediately, an electric current flowed through the blade. Oh, that's interesting. Once a skill was used, he had to wait a certain amount of time before he could use it again. Zeke similarly activated the potion slots. This function allowed him to consume potions just by thinking. After placing the desired potions in the 3 slots, it seemed like it would be useful in urgent situations during battle. While checking his potions to fill the slots, Zeke found the bottle containing the Tears of the Elf King he had received as a reward for the sudden mission. Come to think of it, what is this? Zeke read the description of the Tears of the Elf King. Tears of the Elf King can summon the Elf King from the spirit world once. Summon the Elf King? In Legends, the Elf King appeared as a being who granted wishes to humans, so I can summon the Elf King with this and make a wish? After some thought, Zeke carefully put the Tears of the Elf King back into his inventory. He felt like there would be a time when it would be useful even if he didn't know when. Knock, knock. There was a knock, and when Zeke gave permission, Decker entered the room. What is it? Decker approached Zeke and said, "Young master, you have a visitor." Chapter 35. Zeke asked with a puzzled expression, "A visitor? There shouldn't be anyone who would visit me in Atlas." Zeke left his room and went to the reception room where the visitors were. "Master?" "And Instructor Andre." Surprisingly, Duke Draker and Andre Draker were in the reception room. Duke waved his hand and said to Zeke, "My disciple, you really are something else. I've never seen anyone skip out on Valhalla enrollment. Didn't that stubborn old Flaubert say anything?" Zeke sat down with a tired expression and said, "I just finished taking a special exam." "Really? Then I guess there was no problem." Duke, who knew Zeke's skills better than anyone, wasn't too worried. Zeke looked at the two and said, "But what are you two doing here? What about the academy?" Duke said with an indifferent expression, "Shouldn't a master be where his disciple is? As for the academy, well, Howard will manage it somehow." Duke was someone who didn't do much anyway, just used up potions. "I understand about master, but why is Instructor Andre here?" Andre had a slightly embarrassed expression. Seeing that, Duke said as if exasperated, "Ugh, that leech, he keeps following me around even though I told him I have nothing more to teach him." Despite his words, Duke seemed to have grown fond of Andre and didn't completely reject him. "So you're both staying in Atlas?" "Yeah, you got a big mansion anyway, so let's stay here for a while." There was no reason for Zeke to refuse. Thanks to this, Duke and Andre also became members of the household. Zeke asked Andre, "Instructor, are you going back to the Four Seasons Castle then?" Andre shook his head. "No, I was appointed as an assistant professor at Valhalla." Considering Andre's young age, becoming an assistant professor at Valhalla meant that his skills had improved dramatically. Duke, saying it was good to see him after a long time, started drinking heavily even though the sun hadn't set yet. Zeke kept Duke company for a while, then left him with Andre and returned to his room to prepare for his nighttime outing. And when the secret night fell and everyone in the mansion was asleep, Zeke used the ghost step, a movement technique that left no trace, and went outside. He knew the dark underworld hidden beneath the glamorous metropolis of Atlas very well. Zeke entered a secluded alley on the outskirts of the city where ordinary people rarely ventured, and he went into a bar with a faded sign. Inside the bar, people with dangerous auras were drinking. Zeke scanned the bar, then went to the counter and sat down. He said to the bartender, "Give me a glass of dark beer," and he placed a gold coin on the counter and continued, "Go and tell Kay that I want to meet him." At his words, not only the bartender but also the dangerous-looking men around him turned their attention to Zeke. Zeke, receiving their attention, smirked, "Don't get hurt for nothing and just go tell him quietly. Zeke Draker wants to make a deal with the syndicate." As soon as the name Draco came up, the bartender gestured to a man near the counter. The man went inside and then beckoned Zeke. It seemed permission had been granted from above. Zeke followed the man inside the bar, as expected of the syndicate. A smuggling organization, they led Zeke to a passage leading underground. After passing through several tightly secured doors and numerous forks in the path, they finally came to a building that looked like a huge warehouse. They passed through the entrance, guarded by several rough-looking men, and went inside where the goods were stored. Wait here for a moment. The man went inside first. A moment later, the door opened and the man beckoned Zeke to enter. Inside, all sorts of goods and cargo boxes were piled up. There was a table between the cargo boxes, and Kay was sitting there. A seductive woman with wavy red hair and a low-cut dress that revealed her cleavage. Her taste in clothes is the same as before. Kay stared intently at Zeke's gloves, then she pointed to the seat across from her. Have a seat. As Zeke sat down, Kay took out a cigarette and put it in her mouth. After exhaling a cloud of thick smoke, she opened her mouth again. So, what is the reason why the supernova of the Draco clan wants to see me? When asked to name the best intelligence agencies on the continent, people usually named two. One was the Draco clan's Black Stage, and the other was the Rom Empire's intelligence agency, and then there was an intelligence organization that wasn't widely known. And that was the Syndicate. The Syndicate initially started as a gathering of smugglers from each region, but it was rapidly growing as it became a major carrier of narcotics from the southern continent. Zeke had a connection with the Syndicate, and Kay in particular, in his previous life. Back then, Kay was an executive of the Syndicate. In his past life, she was the one who first approached Zeke with a request. And by securing a crucial transportation route through him, she built a solid career within the Syndicate. Thanks to this, Zeke was able to easily access important information across the continent through her. I wouldn't have found the Elder Dragon artifact before I died if it wasn't for Kay. She wasn't an executive yet, but she was capable enough, so building a good relationship with her from now on would definitely be a great help. Zeke took off his gloves and used the mana reflection skill, Crackle. The magic lamps within the range of the skill flickered violently. Zeke put his gloves back on and stopped the skill. The magic lamps returned to normal. I showed you that because I don't want to waste time with pointless suspicions, so let's skip the posturing. Kay realized that this youngest son of the Draco clan sitting in front of her was no ordinary person. Zeke looked at Kay and said directly, I want to make a deal. Kay frowned at his words. Draco wants to make a deal with us? I'd sooner believe the Rom Emperor would donate to the Holy Kingdom. Does Draco care where the money comes from? Whether it's earned from selling Soma or killing people, money is money. At the mention of Soma, Kay's expression hardened. It hadn't been long since the Syndicate started bringing Soma from the southern continent to the central continent. It was a top secret within the organization. A dangerous aura emanated from Kay and the men around her. Are you trying to get me killed? Suddenly, a tremendous force erupted from Zeke's body. The Syndicate members hidden throughout the warehouse couldn't move a finger against the murderous intent emanating from Zeke. Kay cursed inwardly, realizing that this young Draco was more dangerous than rumored. Damn Drakers. Just then, Zeke took something out of his pocket and tossed it over. Kay was surprised to see a pair of earrings on the table. Artifacts. Even the young Kay had a good eye, just like her future self. Zeke smirked and said, they're popular ancient items at auction houses. You'll be even more surprised when you see the magic attached to them. Kay, with a dubious expression, took the earrings and put them on. Then she raised her mana to check their function. Mana recovery? Zeke smirked. With modern magic technology, it was impossible to create magic items with this level of efficiency, so their value was immense. She quietly put down the earrings and said, is this what you meant by wanting to make a deal? This is just the beginning. I have quite a few items that are even better than this. Keep an eye on the market and gradually release them at the Dorda auction house to turn them into cash. As a pureblood awakener of Draker, you shouldn't have any worries about money. Why are you doing this? I don't think I need to tell you that. Zeke took out a document with his disguised identity, Zeke Murray's details, and handed it to Kay. Open a clean account with this and put the money there. You'll find a trade agreement at the back. The items are in the Northern Bank, so transfer them after completing the procedures. The sales commission is 10 per item, and I'll pay an additional incentive for every 10,000 gold. Kay checked the contract Zeke brought. It was a detailed and well-organized contract. As if this wasn't his first time making such a deal, Kay looked at Zeke and asked, who the hell are you? You ask even though you know I'm Zeke Draker. I revealed my identity to build trust. Of course, I trust you'll keep your subordinates in line. Kay looked at the identification and the contract in front of her and pondered. Then she nodded. She stood up. Follow me. Kay led Zeke to the back of the warehouse. There was an office prepared for Kay inside. It seemed to be a space used for dealing with particularly important clients, as soundproofing magic and security magic were cast everywhere as Zeke sat down. Kay brought something, an oath of promise. This is a very wizardly item. Kay wasn't surprised that Zeke knew she was a wizard. Kay had already guessed that Zeke knew who she was and had come intentionally when he brought the magic items. She unfolded the contract containing the oath of promise and picked up a pen. I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but this means I acknowledge you as a true partner for the first time. Zeke didn't find it strange because he had made an oath of promise with Kay in his previous life as well. Kay pricked her finger on the needle attached to the pen. Then she signed with the blood that flowed down to the nib. Following her, Zeke also signed in the same way. Then each of their signatures was engraved on the inside of their wrists. But Zeke noticed something strange about the signature engraved on his wrist. It was as if two signatures were overlapping. Is it because the oath of promise from my previous life is overlapping? If the oath of promise made in blood was broken, the signature engraved on the wrist would disappear. This was how they could tell if the person they made the contract with had betrayed them. Zeke flinched at the sight of the overlapping signatures. But Kay didn't seem to mind. After confirming the signatures engraved on each other's wrists, the two decided to form a partnership. Now that we're partners, can you tell me why a pureblood awakener of Draco is trying to sell stolen goods? Zeke said to Kay, first, those aren't stolen goods, they're ancient items I found. I won't tell you where I found them, so don't ask. Second, not all pureblood awakeners are rich. You need a wealthy sponsor clan for that. It was an internal matter of the Draca clan that was difficult for most people to know, so Kay listened to Zeke with a curious expression. Then Zeke said to Kay, is the McCain cartel currently trading with the syndicate? Kay's expression hardened again at his words. How do you know such confidential information within the organization? Even I, the branch manager, haven't known for long. She continued, as if there was no point in hiding it. As you said, we're trading with McCain, but these days, we're having trouble because of pressure from the favela cartel. They're telling us to stop trading with McCain and transport their goods instead. Currently, a three-way war was taking place in the southern continent between the giant cartels Favela, McCain, and Tawani. In the southern continent, which was close to a lawless zone, the kingdoms were practically powerless. The cartel's military power was dozens of times stronger than that of the southern continent's royal knights. Based on this military power, they produced the drug soma in the jungle and brought it into the central continent. The biggest consumer of soma was the Ram Empire, so transporting it to the central continent was crucial. The border area, which was originally used as a transportation route, was completely blocked when the Ishtar clan, who had settled there, issued an expulsion order. Even the reckless cartels didn't want to cause friction with Ishtar, one of the transcendent families, so they had to find another route. That's how they came to join hands with the Syndicate, a smuggling organization. They were transporting soma through the south sea, across the desert, and distributing it to the Ram Empire, the Central Kingdoms, and even the northern continent, since it was known that soma not only caused hallucinations but also had the effect of increasing magical power. It was very popular among wizards, so there was always an overflowing demand. Thanks to this, the syndicate, which had monopolized the transportation of the cartel's goods, was making an enormous amount of money by establishing distribution and sales networks in each region of the continent. Zeke, who had personally experienced this situation in his previous life, knew the circumstances of the southern cartels very well. Zeke, organizing his memories from his past life, looked at Kay and said, "Hey, Kay. I want to make you an offer." "What kind of offer?" Zeke said with a calm smile. "Put me in touch with Don Juan." Kay was so surprised by his words that she raised her voice without realizing it. "You want to meet the boss of the McCain cartel?" Zeke nodded. "Yes, and if you do that for me, I'll make you the boss of the syndicate."